And welcome, friends and foes. Just kidding, folks. I don't really have any foes, but invite your friends and foes to come view the videos. We're looking at stereo A's coronagraph here, and we see a coronal mass ejection. Don't worry, it's not Earth-facing. It seems to be blasting out of the western limb of your local yellow dwarf. You can see it right here. There's a coronal hole void here in the corona. And then you can see right around... Hold on, let me get the timing for that. You can see right here, right around midnight, you can see a little bit of plasma get into that void area, and it looks like it gets blasted out. And it's actually headed west. Here's a view from the LASCO C3. And you can see ejecta on the right side of the image here. Right there you can see some ejecta coming out. A little bit on the left side too, but it's primarily out of the right side there. Could see a little plasma hit the magnetosphere. Nothing to really be concerned about there. Looking at the full view here from the SDO in 193 angstroms, we see the South Pole coronal hole is barely visible. And there's actually some prominence down there too. You can see there's some corona there. And it's probably just because there's some plasma in between us and the coronal hole. North Pole coronal hole is looking very large. Here's the 304 angstroms view. Not a whole lot of filamentary activity going on. And this is about 9 hours. I think it's 9 hours and 15 minutes. And we always start these videos out with just the current day's view. So if we make the video at 10 UT, you're going to see 10 hours of activity. Let's talk about the brightest light in the universe. It's gamma ray burster 190114C, which was detected on January 14th of this year. And we talk about the Neil Gorell Swift Observatory regularly. Also, the Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope picked it up. So read the article from Cosmos Magazine if you'd like, if you want to know about the brightest light in the universe. This blazar has a jet pointed right at the Earth. And talking about gamma rays, folks. And talk about some serious high-energy photons. Talking about between 0.2 and 1 tera electron volt, equivalent to the amount of energy released by proton collisions in the Large Hadron Collider. Yet another reason not to be scared of the Large Hadron Collider, because there's much more energetic events happening in space on the regs. Let's go back to data. GOES X-ray flux is flatlined. Haven't seen a B-class flare for quite some time. And here's a real-time solar wind. We did see the coronal hole wind stream arrive pretty much exactly as predicted here. Check it out. We see the wind speed coming up just after midnight. We see some induced current on the planet. Phi angle currently at 142 degrees. Solar wind density has dropped down a little bit to 5.17 protons per cubic centimeter. And solar wind speed is the story. It's elevated at 461 kilometers a second. Looking like it's probably leveling off there. So not a particularly high-speed coronal hole wind stream. And there's the data from ACE. Looking at the magnetosphere, here's the magnetohydrodynamic pressure from that enhanced coronal hole wind, inducing a little bit of current on the planet also. We like to look at it from this view and from the ground magnetic perturbations view on the daily. That's why we gather 4 hours of data each day. And here are the ground magnetic perturbations. Nothing too anomalous going on here. Fairly normal looking induced current, or you could say magnetic field perturbations. Looking at delta B, changes in the Earth's B field. The B field is the field that goes through the magnet, folks. And by the way, you live on the sun's B field. That's the interplanetary magnetic field. And we won't get into that, but we are going to be making a video soon about the generation of the Earth's magnetic fields. 10.7 centimeter radial flux, back up to 70 solar flux units. GOES magnetometer looking pretty spiky despite us being solidly in the North Pole oriented portion of the current sheet. Here's the image of that from the Gong 2 data. Shown in green, the current sheet currently charged up by the North Pole coronal hole. Shown in green, there you have it. Still expecting another. While the magnetic environment can suddenly change, and while this data is 2 hours and 7 minutes old, I would anticipate being in the North Pole oriented portion of the current sheet for another 18 hours. Just keep in mind these things can change with zero warning. KP index boosted up to 2 due to that enhanced solar wind. We're going to skip cosmic rays today. We covered it yesterday. Watch yesterday's video if you want to see the cosmic ray updates, or click the links below the video as we keep that link in there all the time so that our viewers can monitor cosmic rays themselves. Don't take our word for it, folks. GOES electron flux is cratered, as we typically see during coronal hole wind streams, folks. Keep in mind, the solar wind is primarily made of protons. That's right, it's like 90% protons. And it's a little bit of electron thievery going on up there. Relativistic electrons are in a normal operating range. Here's the ionosphere movie. We look at 6 hours of this data every day, also on the channel. And the nighttime side is looking a little bit anomalous there, but nothing particularly interesting. I'll let that play through once more. Looks like some discharge anomalies over the central Atlantic. But nothing too crazy really going on there. And let's look at the latest image. This one coming in at 9:15 UT. Some significant charge disparity here on the nighttime side, but nothing too crazy. Let's do the earthquake rundown. Largest of the last 24 is a 6.1 at Thailand. Let's go through the whole list of 4+ magnitudes, starting with this one, a 5.4 at Mexico. This one coming in at 11:30 UT yesterday morning. Next is the 4.6 at India, followed by a 4.2 at Canada. Really far north. Check out the location of that one. Super far north quake there. That is an oddity. Please update your live journal. Talk about that quake. 4.3 at Zimbabwe is next. This one showing up west of the African Rift Zone there. 4.3 magnitude coming in at 1843 last night. Next is a 4.9 at the Northern Mariana Islands. That one coming in at extreme depth, over 600 kilometers depth. If that happened at the surface, that would be nearly a 7 magnitude quake. Next on the list, between Japan and Kamchatka, is a 4.8 magnitude. That one also at depth, 148 kilometers. 4.6 at the Philippines is next. That one coming in at 2231 UT, just about when the coronal hole wind stream's arriving. And then we see a bit of a lull until 136 UT when we get a quake on western South America. That's a 4.2 magnitude. Followed by an El Salvador quake, 4.0 magnitude, 4.6 at Namibia. Another African quake, this one occurring on the opposite side of the continent from the Zimbabwe quake we covered a minute ago. Next on the list is a very deep quake at Fiji, 4.5 magnitude, 605 kilometers depth. Followed by a 4.8 at the Philippines. That one coming in only 4 minutes later. And that closes out the list. Here's where the pressure maps are according to windy.com. We see a large low over the entire Alaska, Bering Sea region, North Pacific. Let's let that advance about 24 hours and move on, as there's still plenty of stuff to cover. Not quite as hectic as it was yesterday, though, folks. Yesterday, there was just simply too many articles on the newswire for us to even cover everything we wanted to cover. And here's where we expect pressure to be according to windy.com around 24 hours from now. By the way, we shot the video at 4:28. Do you know where your pressure systems are? Next, the volcano rundown. And by the way, if you're wondering where Klyuchevskoye is located, I looked it up. And I don't know why it lost my spot. Anyway, I don't know why I lost my place, but there's where the volcano is located. Let's get rid of this stupid drawer. It's right there on the Kamchatka Peninsula. Klyuchevskoye volcano back on the list, producing a 20,000-foot ash plume. Mount Abiko, 10,000-foot ash plume there. Mount Aso, 7,000-foot ash plume there. Sakurajima, 7,000-foot ash plume. Mount Ibu, it looks like a volcanic uptick overall, folks. The list is very long. Explosive activity at Mount Ibu, 7,000-foot ash plume there. Sanjiang-Api, minor emissions, but are there enough to produce this 8,000-foot ash plume? Explosive activity at Takono, also producing an 8,000-foot ash plume. Shishaldin, looks like it's still erupting with some cone collapses and lava flows and so on. Cleveland and the Aleutian Islands back on the list here. It looks like it's got some elevated surface temperatures and so on. Nothing about the alert level listed. Popocatépetl, emissions seen in satellite imagery. Mount Fuego exploded, produced a 14,000-foot plume. Sangay, 20,000-foot plume there as it explodes. Revenador exploded, 15,000-foot ash plume. Sabancaya unable to detect. And Nevados de Chilean looks like it's still going off. And enough of that. Again, there's where Klyuchevskoye is located. It's actually quite a significant volcanic system around that area. Check it out. Now, we've left this in near the volcano section for the last 3 days, talking about Earth's sulfur cycle. It's highly not understood by climatologists, as sulfur is largely a global cooling factor. Volcanic ash causes cloud nucleation. So does carbonyl sulfide. Shout out to Anomalous Howard. Did you read the article? And yeah, the sulfur cycle, largely not understood, not figured into the IPCC International Panel on Climate Change climate models. Sulfur not figured in or properly understood. Here's where stuff is in the solar system. Milky Way galaxy team for the win. There's where stuff will be in 1 week, just coming off a new moon. Here's where stuff is above my head, I think. It's 4:31. It's 4:32. Do you know where your constellations are? Looks like Cygnus is just about to rise. And let's get into more stuff when we talk about being censored and knowing the difference between your you-know-what and a hole in the ground. Now, we've left links to this article here. Progress in Physics, special report by Pierre-Marie Robitaille. 40 lines of evidence for condensed matter. The sun on trial. The liquid metallic hydrogen model as a solar building block. Read the article. It's 53 pages long. And we're going to cover a little piece of it right now. Many other conclusions derived from gaseous solar model approaches are likely to have led solar physics down unproductive avenues, as deductions have been accepted which bear little or no relationship to the actual nature of the sun. It could be argued that for more than 100 years, the gaseous models have prevented mankind from making real progress relative to understanding the sun and the universe. The sun is the Rosetta Stone that we use to calculate everything else in the universe. If we don't understand how it works, it's a ridiculous idea to suggest that we know the mass of galaxies allegedly billions of light years away and so on. So read the paper. Now we're going to get into our daily star study today, and we've left links to that PDF document as well as this list of nearest stars and brown dwarfs. If you've got red-green 3D glasses, check it out. Today, we are going to briefly talk about Groombridge 34A and B. These are located about 11 light years from the Sun, the Earth, whatever you want to call it. And there's Groombridge 34A and B. A couple of red dwarfs. Or are they dwarves? Dwarfs or dwarves? I think it's dwarves. Anyway, it's located in the constellation of Andromeda. They're not visible with the naked eye. They're dim red dwarfs. And they've got an orbital period of about 2,600 years, according to estimates. They've got a pretty large proper motion. We've left links to the article about Groombridge 34, which is a binary system, talking about A and B. Now, let's talk about some wonderful images of the Milky Way. Now, these images, we're gonna show you close up here in a minute. Keep in mind, the lowest frequencies are in red, middle frequencies. Let me migrate. Middle frequencies in green and highest frequencies in blue. And we've got 27 new supernova that are photographed. Here are the images. I'm just going to scroll over. 27 new supernovae right in the backyard of the Milky Way galaxy. And there are all those supernovae remnants. Notice how they're all illuminated, probably from within. And please keep in mind, viewers, that all stars are variable stars. Anyway, this Australian telescope has got some great images here. We've left the links to the article at phys.org below the video. So check that out if it's something you are interested in viewing. And again, folks, these are composite images here. Blue is X-ray, red is radio, and the rest of the electromagnetic spectrum is in between, color-coded for your convenience. So for instance, this area here, it looks like it's emitting some X-rays out of this region and more visible light out of this region. Talk about the Wolf Creek crater. Now, please leave a comment if you think that's caused by an impactor. And also, please leave a comment if you think that's caused by something besides an impactor. How are these craters so perfectly round, and why is it that when we study impacts in a laboratory, we don't get anything like this? Now, the estimated age has been changed with showing an error margin of more than 100%, as the estimated age of this crater was 300,000 years old. It's now believed to be only 120,000 years old. We've linked to this article also on the new study of the Wolf Creek crater. Also located in Australia, by the way. Let's talk about another thing with a catchy name. Very high energy blazar TXS0506 plus 056. Well, why are we talking about that? Now, again, I've linked this also. It's because it's a blazar, and those are some of the more interesting objects as far as I'm concerned, as these are objects that have their Z-field jets pointed directly at Earth. Why are we talking about it? Well, because there's been a new discovery. This is estimated to be 3.8 billion light years away. And once again, the Z-field jet is pointed directly at us. Let me further elaborate. We're not going to talk LIGO or gravitational waves or anything like that. It's believed that there are actually two jets that are interacting, and this is how this thing is able to produce these neutrinos that are detected in this ice cube detector located under 1 cubic kilometer of ice. The Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory is designed to observe the cosmos from deep within the South Pole ice. Encompassing a cubic kilometer of ice, IceCube searches for nearly massless subatomic particles called neutrinos. The high-energy astronomical messengers provide information to probe the most violent astrophysical sources, events like exploding stars, gamma-ray bursts, and cataclysmic phenomena involving black holes and neutron stars. Links below the video to this SciTech Daily article. You'll find it all over the Science Newswire. Don't take our word for it. By the way, if you'd like to follow the transients of this object, well, right there they are. It's all at the Neil Gorell Swift Observatory. We'll leave links. And we just saw a dense set of transients come out of this object just a couple of days ago, folks. And that's how interesting it is studying space. We get the data sometimes before it's even able to be digested by anybody. Anyway, there's that large burst. And let's move on to the value-added services. Here's where the lightning's coming down. Or is it going up? Or is it doing both? Anyway, check out lightningmaps.org if you want to know all about it. It's real time, folks. It's real time and it's good times. Next time you hear lightning, check it out. And there probably is some lightning coming down. Or is it going up? Or is it doing both? More snow falling in the north central U.S., as well as the Rockies, and some heavy storms over the central U.S. And I do see a convergence zone. Who sees what I'm talking about? Who sees what I am talking about? Bueller, 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 Bueller. It's this violent area around the Iowa, Illinois, Missouri tri-border. Check out that dry air just stabbing its way in, just stabbing its way in, stabbing its way in, stabbing its way in. Now, our viewers probably understand atmospheric physics well enough to know that dry air is more massive than wet air as a rule. And those storms are probably going to be pretty fast moving, folks, from what it looks like to me. And just taking a quick look here at the GOES shortwave satellite, we see a lot of anomalous looking low clouds there. The entire Atlantic Ocean is just full of low clouds. And those are the kind of clouds that are caused by cosmic ray flux. Let's zoom in on that convergence zone. And there's that zone. You can see everything's moving pretty fast, being propelled by the jet stream and that massive clump of dry air. Although it's going to be creating some turbulence, folks. And check out all those low clouds over the Gulf of Mexico there. You see those crisscross patterns? Those are created by different levels of conductivity, or you could say charge potential, in different layers of the atmosphere. So you've got these clouds here that are moving this way. You got these clouds that are perpendicular. You see those crisscross lines? Let's just move on. And there are the jet streams in the Western world. Pretty significant meridional jet stream flow going on once again. Very odd jet stream maneuvers. And here's the Eastern world. We'll let that play for a minute. Looks like there's going to be some extremely cold weather injected down into Central Asia as the jet stream flows due south, straight down toward northern India, the Himalayas, etc. Are you a fan of The Office? Have you seen episode 12, season 3, Back from Vacation? Well, it's still on Netflix. We watched it yesterday, and it's still a classic. Still a classic. Let's talk about more entertainment. Let's talk about Yacht Rock. Oh my gosh, Junkware. How many times do I have to click on your junky buttons before your Junkware responds? Now keep in mind, Yacht Rock doesn't just make fun of Michael McDonald. It doesn't just make fun of Kenny Loggins. It does feature Jason Lee, starring as Kevin Bacon from the movie Footloose. It also makes fun of Hall & Oates. Here's another clip. Yacht Rock. You got to watch Yacht Rock, folks. Seriously. I guess they're having a sing-off here. It's Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins versus Hall & Oates. They even find a way to make fun of Van Halen, and it is just amazing. Are you aware that suicide rates are surging around the world? Now, we encourage our viewers to not come up with a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Just hold out, folks. Hold out. Things will improve. Sadly, climate forcing takes about 2 or 3 years to catch up to solar activity due to the heat latency of water, which means it could get colder again next year. But in any case, suicide rates are surging, and we've left links to this Zero Hedge article. Most places men are committing much more suicide than women, although Pakistan looks like it's the exception. And reaching rates in the U.S. that haven't been seen since World War II. Please press like and subscribe on YouTube if you enjoy the content, as there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that make it look like we're stagnating, but indeed we're not. Let's talk about Google while we're talking about YouTube. And by the way, thanks new viewers. It looks like Google's going to stop giving advertisers the ability to target election ads using data such as public voter records and general political affiliations. In other words, they're going to make it more difficult to target you based on your expected political leanings. Now, for somebody like me, this is a good thing. For somebody like political candidates who are trying to put ads on Google, it's a bad thing. Personally, I don't care, because I would not pay Google 1 red cent if my life depended on it. Anyway, we've left links to the article. And since Google pays us absolutely nothing for these videos, please become a patron. Check it out at patreon.com/smashomash. You will see material that nobody else gets. We occasionally release full volume songs, some original music, etc. We make ringtones, and we release information before anybody else, and only tell our patrons. Patreon.com/smashomash if you want to be first. Help support the channel. And thanks again, everybody who viewed the video. Thanks, everybody who tuned into the live premiere. Thanks, everybody involved in the creation of these videos, especially patrons. And thanks, viewers, subscribers, etc. Stay tuned for a bonus feature. And we are looking at the 94 angstroms view here. The North Pole region. This camera takes 5 times as many photos as most of the other ones besides the 131 angstroms view. It's specifically designed to study solar flares in more depth. There's the South Pole area. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for staring at the sun. Thanks for taking steps to understand the physics. And remember, when you're staring at the sun, not to drink, and if you drink, stare at the sun anyway. Use the proper instruments, perhaps the SDO. Just don't drive. Seriously, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back and that atherosclerosis absent from your veins.